Yo, what is going on, homies? It's your boy Stumped back for another OPTC video, and in today's video, we're taking a look at some more Pirate Rumble, and in particular, defending. So, I've had a few people ask me on my previous videos and streams and on Discord and stuff for like, what's the best way to defend? And honestly, I still don't have a perfect gauge for how to defend, but hopefully this video gives you guys a little bit more insight and helps you guys out when it comes to defending in Pirate Rumble. Now, before we begin, this is just my personal opinion in sort of what I've seen the player base be using from like word of mouth with other players, Japanese players and stuff like that as well. So don't take this as like law or anything like that, but in the same sense, I hope it sort of gives you guys ideas how to sort of defend and stuff like that. So I have sort of put together a couple teams for you guys in terms of defending, but it sort of comes down to sort of like 3 or 4 main tactics. So you have the tactic of just putting a bunch of defensive units and healers on the team and trying to stall out the opposition. You have the option of baiting up the opposition into like thinking that they can beat your team when your team like sort of relies either on RNG or has like cheeky little tactics, which you guys will see 2 teams to that. And big shout out to Rumble Scratch. I will leave his YouTube link in the description below. He does a lot of Rumble stuff, and you guys should check him out if you are looking for tips on Pirate Rumble. I do watch his videos every now and again, and 2 of the teams that you'll see today are actually thanks to him. So big shout out to him. Go hit him in the sub, go hit him with some likes. He does some really, really good content. The final way that I sort of thought about building a team is the 4-man team option. Now, I'm not a big fan of the 4-man team option myself, but I will show you guys sort of how that works as well. And then the final defensive tactic, the one that I like to go with, is just chuck an OP team down and just let it do the work. So the downside to defending is that you can't really test teams. Like, you can attack people with them, but like obviously like then you run the risk of losing your streak and stuff like that. So it's a little bit tricky. But the first sort of tactic we're going to talk about is my favorite of them, actually, is the tanky healing aspect. So this is the first team I've got. This sort of relies around Jack being a very good defensive unit, giving defense up and HP. You got Rayleigh here, who can give again, defense and guard. And then you've got Shanks Crew as well, who's more defense. Then you've got Shirashiri on this particular team, as they are very good at boosting Striker, Free Spirit, and Cerebral characters, which this pretty much whole team is, besides... Or is Jack? Is Jack... I think... Is Jack? Hang on one second. I think Jack is a striker. Yeah, he's a striker, so he actually gets boosted as well. And then we're finishing it off with our boy Roger here, just for a little bit of damage. Roger's very, very good, as he can... reduce the attack as well, which is great. So this team does use Otama in the back as well, but the whole idea here is just to sort of rely on your defensive capabilities and actually stall the opposition team out. So then that way you can get the W by just literally the opposition running out of time. The other team that I had kind of... I don't really know where I put it. Okay, I guess I don't have it built. The only other options that I can really think of when it comes to defensive options are utilizing some funkier looking teams, I guess is the best way to put it. So I do have a Psy team built for you guys as well. The other sort of defensive option is to run teams that no one really knows about, or teams that not many people see. So Psy has a very, very good plethora of units, and this particular Psy team in general, I've actually used quite a bit. Besides Rayleigh, I think I use... what's his name? Cannot remember. You know, I use Colgar and Nolan, but I haven't added them because they're a little bit scary. V3 Law. I normally run V3 Law on my team, on my attacking team, but this Rayleigh is actually really, really good at defending, as he does HP up, as well as giving defensive up as well. So this particular team functions around that sort of defensive option. It's very good at nerfing int and strength, which this guy here is very good at. So you can actually nerf the Odin and Dofi sort of comp. And then with Boa, she can sort of throw out a big attack. She's very, very good at giving defense up. When HP is low, she gives attack up. Her Rumble special is very, very good. If you have it max, 4,000 damage to one enemy is great. And then obviously we have Roger again for his amazing attack. And then we've got the Germa here too, who can nerf int even further. So this sort of team's great. It's sort of just being there, so people can kind of think, oh, again, it's a bit of a bait, I guess, but it's more built around defense and sort of people not knowing what they're in for. This is my defensive team. This is the team that I like to leave up. It is still very scary, and I'm assuming lots of people probably don't take it on. But at the same time, like, you do want to obviously get W's and not let people beat you at the same time. So you want to try to find that happy medium. Another team that I have built for another option that is a bit sort of left field is the strength-based team. So with the new units, like the new sweet generals, if you guys did manage to pull them, they're very good with attack up and HP up. They're excellent at giving cooldown reduction for the strength team too. Strength can utilize Jack once again. They have Luffy Sanji for damage, and then they've got this new Perospero, which is very, very good at nerfing. He does attack down level 6 and defense down level 2. Very similar to Roger, but obviously not on Roger's level. Then we've got Otama for healing, and we've got Akainu in the end here just to sort of just blast away if we end up getting to that point. So strength is sort of flies under the radar a lot. But the next team you guys are going to see is one that I have seen lots of people use, as it is very, very good at stalling. So the Dex team. Dex is amazing at stalling. These guys, this team here, and then you have obviously the option of V2 Jinbei as well. Very, very good. The Dex team, the combination of Hawkins and Kid is actually amazing. And I have seen a lot of people run this particular team. I don't think it stands up to the slashes, the Roger and Odin slasher comp, which is its biggest downfall. But if you do have this team maxed out, it can definitely like hold its own for a very long time. And with a little bit of RNG, again, you can stall the other opposition out. So with Hawkins can give defense up, and he has that ability to lock, like provoke. So you have to attack Hawkins. And with RNG, like wherever your characters kind of sit, this can kind of work in your favor as well. His Rumble ability gives crit and guard, which is great. And then with the combination of Kid gives defense and HP, level 2 and level 5, which is amazing. And then his Rumble special does defense up, as well as doing a bunch of damage as well. The downside to this team is that it doesn't have much damage, so the whole concept of this, again, is to try and stall your opposition out. Rayleigh's very good for giving HP up, defense up, and guard up. With this Frankie's amazing for Dex, as he gives defense up and he gives himself attack. And then his special gives more defense. And the whole idea, and provoke, the whole idea of this is relying on sort of RNG. So like the provoke procs, and then you have to attack them away from other enemies. It sort of like nerfs other characters' specials like that do like large range. We have Corazon on this team as well. Corazon's amazing at doing defense up for the entire team, as well as healing, which is great. And he nerfs quick, but that's not going to be an issue at the moment, but it may see a little bit extra play later on. He does attack up too, but that's not the main thing. Finally, we've got Sobermask. He's amazing at giving HP up, but his special is very, very good to give defense up and speed up as well. So that's the Dex team. But with these three teams here, these three colors, I guess, sort of fly under the radar when it comes to PvP. So does Quick, but Quick just doesn't really have that solid of a base. They're just good on a rainbow team. So these three teams kind of fly under the radar, especially the Dex team. This defensive team actually works very, very well. You have these units and you have some Dex scrolls lying around, you could take up this option. So this is what I'm talking about when it comes to sort of utilizing healers and defensive units. You've got the strength like variation, you've got this Psi variation here, and the Dex variation. But as I mentioned, this rainbow variation is my personal pick. But at the same time, like, it still uses Roger, it uses Shang-Chi, it uses some very high name sort of PvP units, and lots of people don't really attack you. But again, that is another option for you guys. Like, if you're not getting attacked and you're not losing ranks regardless. You're just missing out on a couple of Rumble tickets. So that's sort of the defensive options here. The next sort of option that you have, guys, is the 4-man team. So this particular team, as you'll see here, is very like defensive and offensive based. You have the Roger Odin combo, and then you have the defensive combo of Dofi and Shanks crew. It can work very, very well, but once you come up against a mirror match of a highly ranked slasher team, again, it can just sort of get clapped very, very easily. The downside to Roger and Odin at the moment is there isn't too much that actually counters it. Everything that does counter it is sort of just too scary to verse anyway, so like no one ever verses it. But there is this option if you do want to try and bait some people that have a lower rank than you. People can't see how much cotton candy you have and your stats and your rainbow abilities and stuff like that. So people may think, okay, well, just because you've got these units maxed, they might take you on as well. So I've built two sort of 4-man teams for you guys. These are the two that I like to run. Again, they are still very scary, I suppose, but you can bait people into thinking, all right, I'm going to try. I think my team's finally strong enough to beat you, and then lose. But obviously, like, I see 4-man teams. If I see a 4-man team, I immediately verse it because I just destroy it, especially with Roger and Odin. So that is an option for you guys, but I would not highly recommend using the 4-man team. If it was me, I would definitely use one of these particular teams, these baitier sort of healing defensive teams, to try and stall out your opponents, as they work very, very well. But if you are missing sort of a plethora of units and you don't have many Rumble scrolls, you haven't leveled up many units, and you do want to try and get some wins, say you've already made championship and you don't really care about your ranking in the other ones, you could try these particular teams here, the 4-man teams. They could work for you guys as well. Finally, we have a couple bait teams. Now, these particular teams, again, do look very scary still, and again, don't get many people to attack you, but then you also can catch people out. So this particular team, again, was made by the homie Rumble Scratch. It actually works really, really well, and actually works really well against Roger and Odin. It utilizes Luffy Sanji as an attacker, Jack for HP and defense, and then it has this Usopp here. Now, this Usopp at max Rumble ability, which is not hard to get him up, gives cooldown speed up level 5. So the idea of this particular team is to have this Usopp get his cooldowns. He's in the middle, get him as close to max as possible, and let him die. When he dies, Odin comes in and takes his place, and Odin gets all his special cooldown, which is amazing because once Odin comes in, he can basically just proc his special and basically just wipe the stage for you, as he's got no debuffs, hasn't been attacked, he's got full HP. It works very, very well. We have a Tama for healing as well in this team, which can be like a downside as she can heal Usopp, and then we've obviously got Roger as well. Finally, we've got PvP Whitebeard and Colgar and Noland. They're both very, very good as well, and this team actually works fairly well. The downside is, again, not many people attack you, so that's really the big downside to this sort of setup and this type of like variant, I guess is the best way to put it, as no one tends to attack you too much, especially if you have your characters leveled up. And that's the big downside to defending. You can't really test these particular teams unless you actually just attack with them. But at the same sense, if you stall out the opposition and you're like, oh sweet, my team works, but you just lost the match. So it is what it is. Another stallier team and more bait team, again, you're just utilizing the same ability of Odin in the back and using this Senior Pink, as he has very similar cooldowns. You'd basically just let him die, and then Odin comes in and takes over. Just basically takes over there. So this team's utilizing Rayleigh, Shanks' crew, Roger. Again, it's very sort of healing and tanky. And then the idea is to let Odin come in and basically just win for you. So we're going to try and take on a few fights now. I am going to take this particular team in to show you guys that. I'm going to take this particular 4-man team in, as it's the most common running around. And finally, we're going to test off the Dex team. So let's hop over to the matches now, and let's test out some teams. I forgot to mention too that there is another tactic I did forget to mention. It is something like this particular tactic here, where you have sort of your main team sort of embedded amongst other units that you just want to die, basically. I feel like this sort of tactic is just sort of used to let the opposition basically just kill characters, and then your bench units to start coming in. I'm not a big fan of this tactic myself. It relies way too much on RNG. But at the end of the day, when it comes to defending, if you're not using just sort of like a super strong team, you're sort of relying on sort of the RNG of the bait to sort of work in your favor. But sorry we had to come back to this point. Let's hop into some matches now, and let's sort of test out these teams. Alright, so once again, shout out to Rumble Scratch. This is actually his team build. I did have to sort of move some characters around. But this is the sort of baitier team, as I was mentioning in the intro as well. And sort of how you can sort of bait out your opposition into killing Usopp and letting Odin come in. Now, I did find a fairly, not a good, it's a bit of a rainbow team, to be honest, with the Kaino on there. But I sort of just wanted to take on at least a Roger and Odin comp to show you guys that this team actually can hold its own against those, big-time slashes. It does have Shanks' crew as well, which means there is a lot of defense that sort of procs around that 70-second mark, and they also have V3 lore. So unfortunately with this team, when the heal procs off, it's always going to be healing Usopp, as Usopp is the one that just gets clapped here. But the idea here is as well is you really want your Jack special to proc first, just for the extra defense, so that way you can actually tank a shot from Roger. He's obviously going to reduce defense. Sorry, not Roger. You want to be able to tank the shot from Odin, but at the same time, you also want Odin to actually kill Usopp. So Akainu should... Odin should kill Usopp here, which is... Okay, Odin, he just killed everyone, which is a very, very annoying. But as you'll see, when Odin comes in, he actually gets max super. And then with that, you can actually just... Okay, well, apparently, what's his name's going to go first. With the Odin special being ready, you can just come in and just white face. The same thing happens with Roger in the back, with Whitebeard in the back, and the same with Colgar and Nolan's. Basically, that character that comes in gets that special charge, and that's where you can sort of bait your enemy into thinking they've got this in the bag, and then your bench units just come in and wipe. So the whole idea of the team is built around the bench units, and it can work very, very well. But again, it is quite scary, and not a lot of people tend to fight it. So the next tactic was the 4-man team. Now, again, I'm not overly sold on this particular tactic. But it can sort of catch a few people out because, again, they can't see like how rainbowed your characters are. They can't see like how much cotton candy your characters have. And obviously they can't see that you've like characters max level. So I have been beaten by a few 4-man teams, especially the int 4-man team back in the day. It was like Blackbeard, Katakuri, Enel, and I think it was Doflamingo. So it can be an effective tactic, and if you guys are sitting like well and truly outside of like the top 3,000 and stuff and not coming up against a lot of like very, very strong enemies, it's definitely a viable tactic to use. But in the same sense, like if you're coming up against a team that has like a lot of characters built up and a lot of characters that are max level, like the regular slasher team, it's going to be very, very hard to sort of actually trump them, as you see here. Like when they've got 6 characters popping off with specials, it's going to be very, very hard to beat. But with Roger and Odin, if you can just get Odin's special off like that, it's going to make your life a lot easier to be able to beat as well. So this team was actually fairly decent. It wasn't anything too crazy, but it had a full lineup, I guess. And as you can see, 4-man teams, they definitely can work, but I would only use them if you are in sort of the higher end, sort of like the 5,000 to 3,000, 2,000 mark of championship, if you guys are looking at ranking fairly high. So the final team is the Dex team I'm using. For the tactic is mainly built around defense and stalling, healing, tankiness, basically. So I don't expect to win this match. If anything, I just expect to sort of just stall it out. We might win though. Like, I don't know. Like none of my characters besides Rayleigh are actually leveled up on this particular team. So I don't have high hopes. But at the end of the day, if we can actually stall out the 90 seconds, I feel like that's probably given a good representation of what the Dex team is built for. So as mentioned in the intro, the Dex team is just basically built around sort of provoking, defense, and healing. The idea is you do want your Rayleigh in that middle slot, so Rayleigh does take most of the main hits. And when he takes most of the main hits, he can proc his guard and his defense. The idea of this team too does rely on quite a bit of RNG. So see how we're provoking Basil Hawkins there, and Hawkins sort of just stays in that sort of middle area. It just means if characters sort of come and besides Roger, obviously, because Roger hits everyone, but it sort of helps if they're away from the rest of your characters, because if they have a special, I think Frankie's going to take the provoke now. Now he moves to the back. It just sort of helps out as they sort of are more, they're normally more inclined to target like Frankie and Basil Hawkins, and that way they can just sort of take some heat off your other characters. Again, it's very RNG based, and if you do have this team like leveled up just a little bit, it does function a lot better. I could like literally, besides my Rayleigh being maxed, no one else on this team has been leveled up at all. But now that we've procced Rayleigh's guard and we've got the Rayleigh's defense, we're going to have a much nicer time. The downside is we are fighting a Roger, so Roger is very, very good at sort of just nerfing and just going through all of that. But as you can see, like we are tanking Dofi for like no damage whatsoever. So this team, it does very, very well. Like as you can see, we've gotten them down to like the 35-second mark, which is very, very good. But I'm not leveled up. They've got Dofi, they've got Roger, like it was never really going to be like that much of a contest. I'm just really hoping that we can actually just manage to stall him out. Okay, that was pretty good damage from Hawkins. If we can stall out this fight, that'll be a very, very good showing of this team. But I have, back before Roger and Odin were even in the game, I got stalled out by this team many a times, like many a times. The downside to this team is it just doesn't have a lot of attack, and if you come up against people with fixed damage like Carrot and like Roger, you are going to have a bad time. But again, if you do have these characters sort of leveled up just a little bit, it will do very well. And as you can see, we did manage to stall this team down to the 17-second mark. So I would say that's a pretty good showing. But that's gonna do it for today, guys. Hopefully this video sort of helped you guys out when it does come to defending. And if it did, make sure to go down there and belt that like button for me. And if you are new to the channel, consider subscribing as well. But guys, most importantly, wherever you are in this beautiful world, make sure to enjoy the rest of your day. As always, I thank you for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Lights!